What's up, guys? Welcome back. Strong Life Podcast. Going to do a quick intro right here as our head coach from the Underground Strength Gym, Nate Stout, will be joining me. Nate and I always have these awesome conversations. I'm there in the morning training, sometimes training with the adult groups. Nate is finishing up his powerlifting session, and we start talking training, stories. We mention an athlete that we're working with on something, getting him or her stronger, gaining weight, consistency. And then it always goes down the road of this amazing and inspiring history talk and history lesson. And today we were talking about one of Nate's personal training clients who played football at Virginia Tech, then played for the New England Patriots. And at Virginia Tech, he was training with Iron Mike Gentry. And if I could do a quick screen share here. And this also, for those of you watch or listening, if you go on YouTube and go to Zach Evnish, you could always see the videos that I like to make in relation to reference. I mean, not in relation to resources that we're utilizing. So check this out right here. I have this on my YouTube, Training for Life in Football. Dr. Ken and Coach Mike Gentry, swamp walk, carrying sandbags across these crash pads. This is extremely hard. I actually did drills like this in college for my gymnastics class with Mr. Gonzalez, two-time All-American wrestler at Kane. He had us doing jumps, plyometric jumps with high knees. Killed my legs. And we're going to see if Nate is trying to enter the room, but I'm going to come back to that. So we're going to stop sharing that. So we will come back to that video. Also want to say I have the big annual fundraiser coming up on January 23rd. That is the Lift Strong fundraiser benefiting Wade's Army, which is a children's cancer foundation, and SEAL Legacy Foundation, which is a Navy SEAL nonprofit. So I started this fundraiser in 2007, and we do it every year. We only skipped it 1 year during COVID, but there were actually a few years where I did a Lift Strong in the winter and then in the summer. So let's get Nate to hop in here on Zoom, and we'll take it away. Here we go. All right, Nate is connecting. No camera. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Nate, I'm already recording.
All right.
And I was saying we always like go down, we have a conversation, we'll be talking about like an athlete, or like, yeah, we got to work on his squat. And we're like, man, I knew this guy when I started. It's like it just goes down this like history lesson. And I thought today was cool. We were talking about one of your personal training clients who played football at Virginia Tech. And you're like, do you know Mike Gentry? And I was like, bro, come on, guy. And so, do you remember the video that I'm talking about?
Yes. Great stuff.
Um,
Tire
I'm,
flips,
yeah.
all kind of cool stuff.
So I'm gonna play it, and it's gonna be a little tricky because people are listening, but I tell them to, for a podcast like this, you got to go and check out the YouTube or go to the website. And Nate also has a YouTube, so I'll be able to add him on this as a collaborator. But Nate, I'm going to share the screen and we can watch like the 2 minute
Yeah.
highlight,
Oh
and
yeah.
we will let our history minds go. So let me see how to do a screen share. And I go to this. Okay, Nate, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just going to enlarge this. And now you could see it's a little bit slow. Now you can see the full video, correct?
Yeah.
All right, so let's back this up. First of all, I mean, what a cool name,
Swamp
Swamp.
walk.
So can you imagine that we're on the football team? We hear that I believe they called this the Iron Man Challenge because Mike Gentry was known as Iron Mike, and like maybe they, a week out, they pull out the sheet of paper and they say, "Gentlemen, we're going to read you the list of challenges. and they don't really describe it. They like one of the challenges is the swamp walk, and then where does your mind go? So let's check this out because you and I we talk about this stuff a lot.
Yeah.
I don't have the volume up, but what do you think about the running with the sandbag and the crash mat? What do you
Love
think?
it. Love it.
You-
It reminds me of all the foam pad work that they did at Westside.
oh my God, I forgot about the foam pads. Yes. What else do you think of? I forgot they had those massive foams for the weights to sit into. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, they had that, and this also really reminds me of what we did with Jud Logan and Ashland. We would do all kind of just like cool stuff that he would name whatever, and it's just like grab this 150-pound dumbbell. You're gonna run through the sand. You're gonna squat it 5 times. You're gonna jump through the sand. You're gonna sprint. Just all kind of cool stuff. Stuff that's like not quantitative. Like you can't really calculate it. It's just training, and that's what I
Yeah.
get fired up about. Look at this guy fell.
I know he crashes. So they're doing it again. It seems like, oh, then I fast forwarded. Now they're outside, kind of like what you were talking about, Judd. How you doing? Look at his technique. It's not great technique. He's
Yeah,
just like hulking it. And the dudes are big. They're like farm
yeah,
boy big. Look at that, the size of that video camera. You know it's 80s. And what do you think that is? A heavy D ball?
yeah,
And this was, I believe, a obstacle course. They were doing multiple things in a row, but look at everybody cheering him on.
yeah. Culture, good.
Yes, culture. Um, you got a one pale dude who's like you, very pale. You see him, he's got now look at the old dumbbells.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you
Sick.
what do you think about this? I know you grew up in an old gym. Did they have dumbbells like
Oh
that?
my gosh, there wasn't a single regular dumbbell at the Holly Strength Gym in Charleston, West Virginia. Everything, just like our like 70s, like our 90 and our 110, it was all welded up by like some guy. They were just like, hey, we need some dumbbells. We got these extra plates. Let's find a bar. Let's chop that bar and let's weld it up. Those weights, like just like what you always say, you got to think about like who lifted those before. Like that's what gets me fired up. Like I love my one client, Pat O'Keefe. He's like, I want the pig iron, bro. That's
The
what I like.
pig. Look how they cool him down. They just hose down the legs.
Yeah,
The best. And so my buddy Ryan, I love so now you get a ride back. I believe they're not done yet. Ryan Schumann told me that when you win, you get an anvil. And he said, so you have to carry the anvil back to the locker room. So there it is. He said, so even though you won, you still have to work.
yeah.
And
Well,
that's a
yeah. The
beautiful
reward
anvil.
is working. The
There
reward
they
is
go.
working.
And
Yeah.
I'm not sure who won this, but let's talk. I'm gonna let me stop sharing that. You and I are very passionate about this like imperfect training. So if we go back to what you went to two universities. So what was your first university before Ashland?
So my first university was Division I school. That was Southern Illinois University, and I got to train on the John Smith system. So John Smith, very very successful throws coach. He's like the Jud Logan of Division I, and so he had a great program at Southern Illinois. Tons of national champions, all kinds of All Americans. But then he actually ended up going to Ole Miss in my first year. So I was with Coach J.C. Lambert, and Coach Lambert, his wife is Deanna Price, and she was the first United States woman, I think, to throw over 80 meters in the hammer. Very successful. When I was there throwing at SIU, she had already made her first Olympic team because she had all of her Olympic gear on. She would always practice in that. So I was with Coach J.C. Lambert. I was there for about a year and a half, and that was a great year. But, we've talked about it before, and I talk about this with kids, is that Division I athletics has got a lot of great stuff, and I don't ever want to put it down. But it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. And, we've talked about it that, like, Division II, a really good program, Division II, a lot of times they do a great job at developing the athlete. Rather than saying, like, you are what you are, they say, what can we make you into, which is awesome, And so I had like a little bit of a bridge year, a couple years where I finished my bachelor's degree. That was in Charleston, West Virginia. And, at first when I left SIU, I was like, oh my gosh, like I was, I left my Division 1 and going to this Division 2 school. Almost kind of thought of it as like a failure. But if I didn't ever go to Charleston, I would have never been around those guys at the Holly Strength Gym and like where reunite with them. I knew a couple of them before I went to college, but then when I came back, we didn't have a strength coach at the University of Charleston. So what did I do? I went to the Holly Strength Gym, and then I took a bunch of throwers there with me, and I was doing the strength and conditioning for the throwing squad. We got super strong on old school weights and working hard. And like I've told you before too, the owner of that gym, John Messenger, great guy, multiple state champion, in the with football. He had a football team that won multiple times. He's just like a Hall of Fame guy. He was like almost like what you hear about like with Louis. He was less of a coach, more of like a mentor figure in the gym. And a lot of the learning, which is so cool, I love this. A lot of the learning was not like, hey, you do this, hey, you do that. It was, I gotta watch the strong guy across the room. What's he doing? Maybe if I prove myself to him and I prove that I'm working hard, that he will come over to me and be like, hey, little guy, like here's what you need to do. So like that, it was like a follow along, like just watch the leader. And that's what's so good. Like there was like nobody was on their phone. Everybody was freaking training. They were pumping iron. They were in there to work. And so like this is a problem with today. You go into like just you name it, any public gym, everybody's looking at their phone. I don't want to sound like, we've heard this talk forever, but what's that do? That keeps you from looking around, keeps you from trying to impress the guy next to you. That is the hierarchy of training that has to be there for success. Like you've got to chase those guys. If not, you're just, what do we hear? On your own program, you know?
Yeah, and you and I know we've had these conversations. We get into these, we start off talking training, and it gets into this deep conversation where we're like, man, we wish these younger athletes would not need so much specific, detailed coaching, but the reality is they do need it.
They do,
and
yeah.
and kind of like what you were saying is it's like everybody gets to a point where they're ready to take on the learning and a different level, kind of like what you said. You were at the Division 1 school, and then when you went back to your hometown and you're training at the Holly gym, you were like matured another level, and you're like, okay, I'm going to start taking control of this. But we're I don't really actually see that too much. It's like you've
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, it's very hard just finding powerlifting training partners. So here
Super
you
hard.
are in your late 20s. There's a lot of powerlifters and AKA just lifters. And you say, hey man, come train with me. No, I'm on this program. Whereas you have said usually the best program is just getting a stronger training partner.
Oh my gosh, that training partner is everything. Everything. It didn't matter. Like if it was squat night on Friday night, it didn't matter what I wanted to do. The gym was doing this like with it, whatever variation, and you either like fell in line or you got out. It was a key club gym, like you get kicked out and like you got to do what everybody else was doing. Nobody was on like, like I said, coach wasn't saying, hey, you do this, but the top guys in the gym
Yes.
were running it. Like you talk about Louis, you talk about West Side, they say like, who dictated the lift of the day, the strongest lifters, and then you just fell in behind. And then guess what? When you beat that strongest lifter, now it's your turn to pick it. And you guess what? You don't get a pick until you're the strongest guy in the room. And
Yeah.
I love that. I love that hierarchy. I think it's so necessary.
That
So
would be
necessary.
like saying, hey, I'm on a track team with the sprinters, and whoever's the slowest is going to tell us what this training session is going to look like. Everybody will be like, no, that makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
You're slow.
Or
You
it's like,
haven't,
hey, bro,
yeah,
I'm slow. I'm gonna do this.
yes, I am on this XYZ program. And so I think um, if you're lucky, you grasp at a younger age how to be competitive in everything, in your training, in your practice, rather than segmenting it. And so, another thing we've spoken of, and I've certainly seen this because I've been coaching for so long, is that today our athletes train their sport much more frequently than the athletes I worked with before the iPhone became very popular. So I don't know when the iPhone started, but I know around 2012 or 13, it really started booming. And that was when I saw an explosion, an uptick of travel sports. So our sport athletes started doing more of that, less serious strength training. And we haven't had a standout athlete really in any sport. And I was thinking to myself, man, we had Joey D'Angelo was, I think, seventh or eighth in the state, and that was the struggle for him. And I think to myself, when we had state place winners, they were pretty consistently top three
Mm.
and crazy strong. And so the dilemma you and I speak about, and I hear it from other coaches, and I know you speak with other coaches, is they're too busy to actually commit to strength training and even nutrition. Like this morning or yesterday, I can't remember. Yeah, I think it was yesterday you were training, you were drinking a shake.
Mm.
You were talking about what was in that shake? Orange juice and maple syrup, or
That shake, that's my intra workout shake, and that's just 50 grams of maple syrup, and which is about 45 carbohydrates, and then a scoop of flavorless whey protein. So
yeah.
it's like comes from like the John Meadows stuff, where he talks about if you have a constant stream of aminos and carbohydrates running through your body while you're training, you're almost like shortcutting that. Then you don't really need to urgently go get some protein right after you got it in your bloodstream already. But my goodness, yeah, we talked about the other day about like people are scared of food. It's like when I'm trying to get big, brother, I try to get big. I'm gonna, everybody wants to demonize carbohydrates, but you're an athlete, you need carbohydrates. Like, what
Oh
did I
yeah.
say? Like, like my eating is basically the same exact foods, no matter if I'm getting bigger or smaller. I just eat more carbs when I'm getting bigger. Now, you got to take that information with a grain of salt, because you don't want to say that to the masses, and then you've got adults smashing carbohydrates. That's where like the internet stuff, like you see it with Mike Israetel talking about like the bodybuilding stuff. It's like people don't know, like, okay, this information is for this, and then this
Context.
information is for this. Yes, the context of it. Like, so like the context of that is for the athlete. The adult has less carbs. We want to have the lower blood sugar. You know what I mean? And so like people get that stuff mixed up because there's just so much information coming from so many different places with no context. They're like, do I eat carbs? Do I fast? Do I do carnivore? What do I do? And it's like, dude, it's so simple. It's complicated. It's so
Yeah.
simple,
I like what Mike Dolce puts out, a lot of a common sense approach. He's
Mhm.
like, pretty much still eating like a bodybuilder, like a moderate carb, moderate protein, and a low fat approach. I'm keeping my blood sugar level by having a meal around every 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
I walk every day. It's this common sense approach that people just want to be like, damn it, it's got to be
Yeah. It's got to be
worse. It's
something
got to
else.
be more challenging. The
Yeah.
struggle too is yesterday I was speaking with a mom, and I think it was like 8 o'clock ish. And she's like, I left the house at 3:30 and I'm not home. She was 30 minutes away, and she's got two kids, two different sports. And she's like, I'm physically exhausted. I'm emotionally exhausted. And she's like, I'm getting close to financial exhaustion going to all these travel sports. And the gym being in Manasquan, there's a park across the street, and I'm living town 16 years. I've never seen a pickup game there, like full court, going hard. I see some kids shooting around, but I grew up in Edison, and there was a park a few minutes away, and it was all like adult dudes
Mm.
playing basketball. And if you could go there, you knew that you could be a varsity basketball player. And I remember a friend of mine, she was on the college basketball team at Kane, and she would go there and play basketball against the guys.
That's
She's like,
awesome.
yeah, she's like, it makes me so much better. Like the physicality of the game is just like she's like, it's nothing in
Yeah.
college compared to playing against these guys playing street ball. And then the other issue is food, man. Like yesterday, I had a kid, he had two hockey games. This morning was so tired, he woke up late, no breakfast. And
Mm.
guess what else? He's got another game today.
Yeah.
So his only meal was the school lunch. And
Ah.
I said, dude, this is why you're so skinny. So what are, tips and advices for the parents? I always talk about cooking in quantity.
Yeah.
What do you think about when
Being prepared ahead of time. If you
Mhm.
wait until it's time to eat, it's already too late. Because if you've got a busy schedule and you've only got 15 minutes to get your child fed between two practices and you're waiting until that 15 minutes to do it, you're behind the ball. You haven't planned ahead. So something easy, peanut butter jelly sandwich in a milk, like that
Yes.
sounds like, oh, that's junk food. No, like if your athlete's training, like if like he's talking about at 3 hockey games, they need calories, they need some carbs, they need some protein. But my biggest thing, and you know this probably with your own training, is if you're training and you have, like, let's say you train at 3 p.m., not 8, not 6 a.m. in the morning, but 3 p.m., and you don't have fuel in your body, you feel like you're dead. You feel like
Yeah.
you're dead. You got to eat a little something before you train. It's
Yep.
like an old business where they say, oh, don't eat anything before you train. You're going to throw up. You're not going to throw up. Something light, something easy to digest. Like I said, peanut butter jelly sandwich, banana, like peanut butter honey sandwich, banana and
Yes.
milk, something easy to eat, easy to slam, and then you could do it multiple times a day with almost zero preparation. You talked about one time in front of the groups, like how long does it take to make 3 eggs in the morning? One kid said 5 minutes. It's the longest 3 eggs ever.
That's
But
right.
like, yeah, yeah. But
10 minutes to make a sandwich, they
yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah.
I'm like,
That's
what
a
are you
big,
making
that's
a
a big
sandwich
sandwich.
with your feet? Come on, guy.
But yeah,
Yes.
being prepared. So there's the
Preparation.
little things like the small snacks, but then there's also, like, for me, I pick 2 days a week. We've made videos on this. I pick 2 days a week where I prepare the next 3 days of meals. And that
Yeah.
doesn't mean, I eat 6 to 7 times a day. It doesn't mean I make 6 to 7 meals for every day. Let's say I know I'm going to be in a pinch for two of those meals out of the day. So I make 2 meals for every one of those days. So 6 meals. That's nothing. That's a couple pounds of meat, a couple cups of rice, throw rice in the rice cooker, throw the meat in the pan, cook it up, throw it in a thing with some bone broth, and you got a meal, you know?
Yes.
And so those things are so quick, so easy. But you got to be prepared ahead of time. Because if not, what are they doing? They're stopping in, they're getting something at McDonald's, they're getting eaten.
Seven
Wawa is not
Eleven.
a place for games.
Yeah. Shit.
Wawa will not get you jacked. Okay. Like, and then even worse, the kids, like, sometimes they're not even eating at all. And some of it is like, yes, time, but then also, like, we got to get these kids under a barbell, under some weight to stimulate the appetite so they
That's right.
want to eat. Like, I talk to a lot of our kids that are real small. I'm like, you got to eat more. They're like, Coach, I eat so much. It's like, I guarantee you, I eat 3 times more in my breakfast than you do the whole day. You know what I
Right.
mean? And they don't have to try to live up to what I'm trying to eat. I'm 250 pounds, but, like, still, you got to eat a little bit more. They got to stimulate the body to stimulate the appetite.
I love that, you mentioned putting the barbell on. So, we've had that conversation where this is also why I encourage coaches, especially young coaches, like they're probably getting information from, I don't know who's like the modern day strength sports science person, but I say, hey guys, have you read Keys to Progress or any of the old Milo magazines? Keys to Progress and even the old bodybuilders from what would be called the silver era. So it would have been, or even bronze era. So like Reg Park, Steve Reeves,
Yeah,
John Grimmick, Bill Pearl.
they had
They
such a great look.
they were rugged and they were strong
Yeah.
and they workouts were often full body. And it's interesting that those decades ago, before I was born, the books and articles for the quote unquote hard gainer always had what's called breathing squats, which was 20 rep squats. So it would be in the beginning of the workout, and then there would usually be like 12 exercises, and then it would be somewhere around the fifth, sixth, seventh exercise again,
Mm-hmm.
another set of 20 rep squats. And what that did was, as you said, stimulates the appetite. There's something that happens when the bar is on your back,
Yeah, you
and
can't mimic it with a dumbbell or a kettlebell either.
and we're so worried, we're always so scared. And the reality is that I've said often, I never had kids that had quote unquote bad ankle mobility. Like, what is that? And somebody said to me, well, maybe we weren't smart enough to catch it. I was like, nah, man, I would have noticed if a kid's ankles were caving in or his back was hunching over,
Yeah.
but it just was not a thing
Mm-hmm.
until the phone became popular. And so you were able to teach kids a squat right away. And so that, those older workouts, I loved them. It would be like squat for 20, Then it would be usually a military press for 8 to 12, then a bent over row, dips, pull ups, and then I think again squats, then usually like a dumbbell pullover. And that was usually 15 to 20 reps. And they said that dumbbell pullover was for like quote unquote expanding
Yeah,
rib
expand
cage.
the rib cage.
And so right before I was born, I'd say like then in the late 80s, 90s, before I was born, it was like, hey, you're skinny. You're the 98-pound weakling. Now everything's about you people are too fat. And
Yeah.
that is the truth. People are too fat, and it's because they're not really eating too much. They're just eating all fake shit.
Yeah. And you talked about it the other day, running used to be a form of transportation.
Yes.
Running and walking used to be like the form of
Yep.
transportation, or biking. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you
Dude.
know,
I had such a funny story today with the athletes at my school. You'll laugh at this, and it will be interesting to hear how it was in your neighborhood where you grew up in West Virginia. As I said, see, guys, you're training for hockey and wrestling and baseball and lacrosse and swimming, and you've got all these sports. I said, but in my neighborhood, we had a bully, and we knew, man, that like he would always like mess around with you, or he would take your bike and he would ghost ride your bike, or he would like bully you outside playing basketball and hockey. He'd always like bust you up more. And I was like, man, I'm friggin' done with this shit. I'm going home. I'm going to start doing push-ups and curls.
yeah.
And I was like, that's what started. I was tired of getting bullied. And then I said, and then they're like, oh, did you beat him up? I was like, well, that story ain't over yet. It was coming home from school. We had no bus. So it was
Mm.
bike and walk all year long, rain, snow, all that crap. And I said, there was always these like burnouts, they called them, in the back of the school. And I was like, oh, they were like a gang. What was the name? I was like, oh, yeah. They graffitied the wall. It said SOD. They were the stormtroopers of death. And I was like, I got to go home. I got to ride my bike through the back and hope that the stormtroopers of death are not going to beat me up and steal my bike. So I said, you guys are training for this non-threatening activity. I'm like, I'm training to not get bullied by Chunk, the bully, and the stormtroopers of death. And of course, the kids are laughing, and I'm trying to make a joke of it. But I tell them, like, you got to train for something deeper
Yeah.
than your sport, because sport ends, and only 5% of athletes will compete in college, and not all of them will go for the full 4 years. So,
Yeah.
what was your growing up like? Was there a impetus moment or
I tell you
things
what,
happening?
I tell you what it is. And it wasn't a bully, but what it was is that there was never a Division I athlete or like really like a state champion or anything that ever came out of my county. And I said, if I want to go do something good, I'm going to have to train really hard because I want to get out of here. I want to use it's like, you hear about people talk about want to get out of the hood. I wasn't in the hood, but it definitely like a version of it. It wasn't the hood, but it was an area with not very many jobs, no like real sports, no like not very affluent, pretty low income. And it's like, if I want to get out of here, I got to do something good. I got to be the first person ever out of my school to ever make it to a Division I school. And I want to say this. I've never voiced this before, but I love my mom to death. But one time when I was like 14 years old, I told my mom, I said, Mom, I'm going to go to a Division I school, and I'm going to go, I said like Texas A&M. I'm going to go to Texas A&M. And she like very calmly looked at me and she said, you're not going to do that. She's like, nobody does that. She's like, nobody does that here. I remember in that moment, I was sitting on the floor in my living room that I said, that ain't happening. That's not me. I'm going to do it. And I've never told my mom that, but that was a big moment right there when like even she like would like saw the way. You ever seen the documentary about Randy Moss? Um,
I
he
think I did.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, you ain't gonna get out of this place, bro. You're never gonna get out of here. And they're like,
Hmm.
why can't I get out of here? It's like, it's just the way it is. That's just the way it is in rural West Virginia. They think, you just grow up, you either basically, you either go work for like the natural resources, like oil and gas or coal or whatever, or like the power company or something like that. If you don't do that, you're on welfare, you do drugs. Seriously, that's the only thing back home. So I was like, I got to be the guy. I got to do it. I got to get out of here. I want to prove myself. And ain't nobody else going to do it other than me. That's why I didn't really play like team sports as much, because I knew if I played a team sport, like if I played football, I was never going to get out of here, because our football team, we had no athletics. We had nothing. And like being on the like more recruiting side of things in the college sector when I was working, if you are like a standout guy, but you're at a school that like doesn't ever play anybody tough on your schedule, probably not going to get another look. So what I had to do was find a sport that was individual. You know, Summer did tennis. You got guys that do wrestling. Mine was track. That was the thing. It's like, okay, I can stand out as an individual. I can become a good athlete here. You know, I've got the drive for it, and I'm doing it for something deeper because I wanted to be the first. You know.
You when you mentioned that West Virginia and your mom saying you're not going to do that, two things I was reminded of. This was a while back, but I believe there were these twins from somewhere in West Virginia. I don't know where they went to college, but they both got into the NFL. And I remember one of them had a tattoo right here across the collarbone said "son of a coal miner."
Mm,
The mom was a coal miner,
mm, that's
and
awesome.
I remember they were massive. We'll have
Mm,
to look them up. And then you speak about, moms. And so this would be, hopefully parents are listening to this. Today I every day I'm on the phone with parents. It allows me to listen to their concerns and get out of maybe what's running through my head and really listen to what is their concern. And so she had signed her son up for an intro workout with us, and we used to call that a trial, which
mhm.
now like threatens people. And there's been this flu bug going around, so kid got sick, and she's very concerned. And so she's like, I think we're this week. I didn't realize something's going on. Da da da. I was like, why don't you just give me a call? And she's like, well, here's what's going on. He's undersized. He's skinny. He got sick for 2 weeks, and that's been going around. And he can't do a push up. And I said, I got to tell you, we have a gazillion kids that can't do push ups. There's kids that come to high school for the freshman football team cannot do a push up. I remember a couple years ago, the whole lacrosse team came in like a month before the season, and I was like 60, 70 kids, and most of them could not do push-ups. I flipped out on them. I said, how do you get off the ground when you
Yep.
fall? And I told them, do not come back to this weight room until you know how to do push-ups. And you don't need a strength coach to do push-ups. You need to get sick and tired of being weak. I said, so from now on, you go home and you do push-ups. You wake up in the morning and you do push-ups. And it's been an interesting and difficult for me, talk about. I like to, just like with you and our coaches, always say, hey, I'm being transparent. Some of this stuff is new to me. Like, you're our first ever head coach. And so there's a lot of new business management stuff. Well, for me, running a business for so long and being around certain type of kids, it's very difficult for me to like adapt to kids who are like, I'm too busy, or I don't want to, it'll never make sense to me. But just like I said at Underground Strength Con, I gotta let it go, man, because the I don't know where the killer kids are. I think I'd have to go to like University of Iowa to be working with them, or somewhere. Even they say a lot of football players today, they're like, they don't really care how they're lifting. They're going to transfer to many a school, not just every year, but now like every semester.
Mhm.
And so the teaching of lifting, Nate, in college football, I think is going away, because in '09, when I met House, or '08, he said, oh, our incoming freshmen do a 6 week introduction, all body weight, unilateral, one arm push ups against the wall, single leg, pistol squats, Bulgarians, recline row one. He's like, dude, well, nobody even recruits freshmen anymore.
Yeah,
It,
yeah,
that is
yeah.
like it's gone.
Now
So
they're missing the foundational work, and now they're not going through a program.
yes,
Not going through a program,
I'm
which
on
is
my own program,
yeah,
which
yeah,
I think is only a matter of time before, with NIL,
yeah.
a dude has in his contract, hey, I don't squat, or hey, I actually don't need to lift with you. I got,
That's
Nate
great.
Stout is coaching me online, and I'm going to do my program elsewhere. I mean, we kind of see it with the wrestler Ferrari, who's at
Yeah,
Nebraska.
yeah.
He is lifting at another gym. I think he's doing just extra.
Hmm.
So it's actually great to see. What do you think about that? Like a kid who's doing heavy lifting in season. He seems to love it and thrive on it.
Yeah. I mean, some guys, like you talk about, some guys got to have that.
Yes.
Some guys absolutely have to have that for their psyche. And some people can't handle it. But what do we see? The best guys are usually the ones that can handle it. You know,
Right.
like when I was an athlete in college level, when I was coaching at the college level, never once was in a conversation to not lift during season. Like we were trying to be our strongest at the end of the season.
Yeah.
We didn't just lift, and then when season start, we just coast. Doesn't that just sounds so like old news? We got to get past that.
You're like, what are you even talking about? Tired. You know what's interesting is I was never a high level athlete, but I used my mistakes in wrestling and athletics to my advantage when I went into bodybuilding. And everybody like knows, when I trained at Diamond Gym, my training partners were on anabolics. And I remember in the beginning, I was struggling with how intense and how much volume we did. It was kind of beating me up. And then I remember at about the 3 month out mark, I was having a conversation with the owner, John Kemper, who passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, man, I don't even get tired anymore. I'm not tired. I'm not fatigued. I'm like, I want to win so bad. I don't feel it. And he said, that's a good attitude to have.
Hell yeah,
And I didn't realize like, oh, this is an attitude.
yeah,
I was too young to grasp that.
yeah, yeah.
So let's close out with like one topic. What's been like we always have kind of these, we go down the rabbit hole. We start talking about history or powerlifting. What's something that's on your mind a lot, whether it's strength for athletes or powerlifting
Building
lately?
a like we talked about, like building a culture of those killers, and then like that's on my mind. That's what, like, I wake, like you talked about in a meeting one time with you. It's like I wake up at like 1 a.m. in the morning, like thinking, like, man, how do I get this kid to get strong? Like, how do I get through to him? And not just with the kids we're training, but my own training group. Like, I want killers. I want to be associated with people that are tough and strong. That is a big thing on my mind. That's a huge thing on my mind. How do I get through to not only the athletes that I'm coaching, but the people that are training with me? And how do I build both of those groups? I want to have killer athletes at the underground, but I want to have a training group as well that, like, we go to meets and we all pull over 700 pounds, and the people or we all squat 700 pounds, and like they're like, those guys right there with the underground shirts, like those guys are freaking strong. Those guys are tough. I love training. Like, you know, as I get older, I'm sure things will change, but like the thing that's on my mind all the time is training. Like, I got such a passion for training. Like, it's my passion runs hotter now than it ever has, and it just keeps on getting hotter and hotter.
Yeah, we love talking about training. And then, of course, the reality that we also talk about is the parents and the kids don't really know what we're bringing to the table as coaches, our
Yeah,
expertise.
yeah,
When a kid gets in the car, they just ask, did you have fun? Do you
yeah,
like the coach? Do you like the people? They don't understand if we're teaching them how to pull a weight with a proper back,
yeah,
proper progressions, the safety. They don't know that, but it's something that we
yeah,
take a lot of pride in. Like,
yeah,
hey, Johnny, move your foot over 1 inch, move your elbows up. All these little details that could
yeah,
often get ignored.
yeah,
Um, you talked about the culture. So you train at around 6:45, 7 a.m.
yeah.
And we have groups at the underground that are 5:45 a.m. And it reminded me, sometimes we're like, man, that's early. Well, the first time I went to Diamond Gym was for 5 a.m. because I
Mm,
knew they opened at 5. Well, I got there at 5, maybe a few minutes early or 5:02, and I park in the back and I'm walking down the street was like on a hill, and I hear the music going. Tsh, tsh. I was like, oh man, the front desk worker must have gotten here early.
mm.
And I open the door and I see 30 dudes friggin' smashing weights. Not like they're just warming up, but I was like, oh, I'm fucking late. 5 a.m. is late.
Yeah,
They've been here at least 30 minutes. And I remember it was almost winter because it was right before my 18th birthday. So it was sometime in November because I remember my birthday gift was the membership to Diamond Gym. But I remember when I opened that door, I saw guys like on the incline dumbbell bench, and the guy had his cut off flannel, and he was pumped and sweating.
Yeah.
So that's how I knew
Yeah.
they didn't they didn't just open a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
These dudes have been here, and it was packed.
Mm.
And so those guys were either training before work, or it could be, I don't know, after work. Diamond Gym is Maplewood, which is a nice little old town, but it's surrounded by Irvington, which
Mm.
is not a good town. And those guys are coming from a lot of those blue collar rough towns.
Yeah.
And it makes me think like um, they were friggin' putting in the work, and it wasn't no 45-minute, 30-minute session.
It was hard. Yeah.
Normal workouts were 90 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quite common.
Yeah, for sure. You know what else is on my mind all the time? The influences that I had throughout my life. The awesome influences that I had that acted as catalysts to become the person that I am today. And like, I want to be that for somebody. So I look back and I think, John Messenger at the Holly Strength Gym. Amazing guy. I mean, we had Phil Pfister there, who was a 2006 World's Strongest Man. We had Brian Siders there, multiple time IPF world champion, could be at the World's Strongest Man multiple times. Alan Beria, multiple time world record bench presser. And like that guy John, he was the man. He was like, not only was he like the coach there, but he was such a father figure to so many. And then I look further, I go a little bit further, and I look like, oh my gosh, I had Jud Logan, like those guys. Like he had, talk about an aura. And talk about an aura of coming off of him. You read about that kind of stuff, but to see it in real life, that man had like almost like a golden aura coming off of him. You're like, I don't know who this guy is. If you didn't even know who he was, you'd be like, I don't know who this guy is.
Why
But
did
I'm
he
gonna
have a golden aura? But like what? And by the way, when you went to Ashland, had you already met Judd, or was it
Yeah, a couple
okay?
times, just at meets and stuff. But what I mean
Okay.
by golden aura is he was such a huge presence, and wherever he walked, you could tell he was in command. He was like the guy. You could tell. You're like, I watched when he would walk into a restaurant. Like if we went with him to a restaurant, he would walk in. Everybody in the entire restaurant would just look at that guy and they'd be like, "Who is that dude?" You're like that if he was born in a different time, he would have led people into battle. Like seriously, he just
Really?
had this aura about him
Give
where you're
give an
like,
example. What would happen before a training session? What
oh,
was the
we would be waiting. We would be waiting there, waiting in the gym. He was such a on the go type of guy. He never stopped to chat. Comes in, clipboard, you're doing this. Bang, we got right to it. And then it was like, thanks, coach. Talk to him a little bit, and then he'd be right out the door. Like he was like large and in charge, no time for messing around. He would like come in, command the room. It was like organized chaos, and then he would leave, and it would be like, whoo, like coach is here, coach is gone. He had such a presence of like, I don't want to do anything to like upset this guy or anything, not in a fearful way, but like a fatherly way. Like I want to make him proud. He's the guy. I want to do it for him. Like, and when he passed away, oh my gosh, the culture that we had, like we were like, we're gonna do it for Judd. And we ended up getting second place at the national championship that year when he passed away. But also beyond that, I had, Judd at Ashland, but while I was at Ashland, I also had Mike Bartos, who was in Youngstown. Mike, another guy like that. If you saw Mike, a lot of it has to do with these freaking crazy jacked, but you see him, you're like, whoa, like who is this guy? I'm going to listen to this guy. But I talked about you the other day how like I would go to his place for a gut check. I would go
yes?
to his place to see like how much do I need to improve, and then next time I'm like, get that guy. I'm like, get him. And never did I ever get him,
Right.
but he was so strong. And Dave Tate talks about this. You only know how hard your heart is. It's all relevant until you go and train with a guy like Mike Bartos, who's
Hmm.
moving 800 pounds like easy, and then the pace is so fast, and you're like, wow, there's levels to this. Like I thought I was training hard, I wasn't training hard at all. New frame of reference. And then like when you're there, I'm following that hierarchy. What is he doing? What's the next guy doing? This next strongest under him. We're in his basement called the Dungeon of Destruction, and we're just down there freaking clanging and banging, and I'm learning from him, learning not just the exercises that he's doing, but learning from the intensity, the discipline, he told me, he's like, I have 155 meals a month. I cheat on the 156th and I'm back on it. I'm like, dang, bro, I didn't even know you could be that disciplined on something,
No
training
doubt.
it, getting up. He gets, 3 a.m. in the morning, goes to
Crazy.
eats, walks, trains at 5. Then he works 110 hours a week. Like somebody like that, you need examples like that in your life. I talk about this from a very young age, 3, 4, 5 years old. I saw Brian Siders, who was 6'3", 355 pounds with a freaking six pack. And from that moment there, I
Jeez.
realized, I was like, you can be something way different than the average person. It's like it opened my mind from a very young age. It's like, some people out here are different and I can get a piece of that different. I can be a little bit of that. I just can't be like everybody else. I got to follow what these guys are doing. And so
That
those influences is what, everything, it always comes back. Like we're just saying, it always, we always go to these passionate conversations about whatever. And like, everything that I say and everything that I see always comes back to like those influences, and like the thought of like, can I be like that for somebody, and like, I'm sure it's already happened. I'm sure it has, somebody that I coached like 3, 4, 5 years ago is probably looking back and thinking, Coach Nate was great. He was
sometimes
awesome.
they
He taught
don't
me how to do
grasp
this.
it
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
that's the toughest thing as a coach is you're like, did I reach this kid? And then 5 years, 20 years later, they say, I didn't get it then, but I get it now. And like my buddy Craig Fitzgerald said, he said, for a lot of people, coaching's a job.
Yeah.
He's like, but for the rare few, it's your calling.
Yeah.
Like you don't know. Like you're just that's what you do. I said, dude, I don't play the lottery, but let's say I win the lottery one day, I'm still coaching. I'm pulling up to a parking lot somewhere and coaching people,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, dang, I forgot what I was saying. I think next time we chat, we should talk about some of those like crazy workouts that Judd had you doing that we were just watching with
Yeah.
Dr. Ken and
I love
Mike
that you brought up the
Gentry.
breathing squats, because we did the breathing squats. We would do fall conditioning. It would be like a month of freaking hell, was basically what it is. And it was kind of like to weed out the people, but also to like give you a gut check of like, this is what it's going to be like here at Ashland, #1 program in Division II for throwing. Like, it's going to be tough, but like breathing squats, super long carries, tire flips. It would be all kinds of cool stuff too. I was talking with Matt Wiedemer about like weird explosive stuff. Like, he'd be like, all right, he puts the Bosu ball down. He's like, you're going to run at that Bosu ball, double leg jump off of it, and then you're going to land on this box and then get a depth jump off of it. Just like stuff you would make up, but it wasn't perfect. And that was what made it perfect. It
Oh,
was
this is
imperfect.
all right. This is what I was thinking about. A buddy of mine, great dude, Jeremy Teal. He had multiple gyms and he had sent like a lot of his coaches to come to New Jersey. They did a private underground strength coach cert. And so, for everybody listening, Nate and I are going to bring back a live certification and it's going to be fucking hard. Like, people are going to be training. But my buddy Jeremy, I was going to Texas to do a cert and he held a night with the men amongst all his different gyms called Project X. I don't think there were women there. So it was all men and it was like Fight Club. So everybody had a white shirt on and I think your name was on the front, So Evanesh, Stout. And they were going through stations of challenges. And I thought that was cool. And I'm wondering, like today, if we did Project X, number one, would our athletes show up or would they be like, I got to go to hockey practice? I got to go to my fucking 50th this practice. Just like we have Lift Strong fundraiser coming up, we are often not the best showing. We don't have the most numbers. It's like pathetic and embarrassing
Mm.
every year. Oh, we trap our deadlift every week. I'm not I can't I'm busy, like whatever. I wonder if we could do a Project X
An in-house thing. Yeah.
in-house. You got to get invited to it. We'd have to alert the cops and say, listen, dudes are going to be fucking farmer walking up to the street. We're going to be ripping it. Like, don't arrest us. This is what's about to go down. And if we can't, maybe we hold our own Project X and you get invited to it. Not like that nerd shit. Like, listen, man, like people bringing in Navy SEALs and degrading grown
Yeah,
men.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah,
just a physical, tough challenge of
yeah,
a bunch of different workouts. And then we go and eat, and that's it. Like, but
yeah,
something that you're going to Mike Bartos's house, and we said, you're not just going to train with him, but 2 to 3 weeks out, you're like, oh, damn, it's about to get real. I better start doing more kettlebell swings. I better start doing extra sets of sleds and farm walks to physically prepare so I am not an embarrassment to myself. And so Mike doesn't say, you know what, man, you're wasting my fucking time here.
yeah.
Don't
Got to get
ever come
scared.
back. Yeah, you're scared of being unprepared.
Yeah,
Now, the flip to that is I have had some hard conversations with athletes in sports like wrestling and footballs. I say, dude, if you don't prepare here, when I watch you out there, it looks like you're getting mugged.
mm,
And let me tell you something. It's not only an embarrassment to you, but your mom and dad, it kills them to
yeah,
watch. Don't you not want that to happen? And so I think for all men listening, and we do have some ladies, a couple ladies read the Strong Life newsletter and they're like, I like that you don't say I'm catering to everyone because you don't.
yeah,
I'm like, you don't. So I think you got to start taking pride in being strong
yeah,
and take pride in the fact that it's embarrassing to be
yeah.
average. And
You
like
gotta
what you're
hate
saying,
losing. You
you
gotta
got to
hate losing.
hate that shit.
Yeah. You gotta like I don't know why so many people are just okay with losing. I won't mention any names. We had a young boy in the gym that got beat on three different exercises by one of the girls in the gym, and he felt no shame. He like,
Horrible.
he had like a little like, whatever, like dang. And I was like, dude, you're the same age as her. That should like go, that should get you to your core. Good on her.
Hells yeah.
Great for her. But for
Yep.
him, it's like, bro, like, dude, you got to get fired up. I love what Dave Tate talks about. He's like, there's some guys that love to win. There's some guys that hate to lose. Two different types of people.
Very
Everybody loves
true.
to win.
Yes.
Everybody loves it. Everybody loves it. But when it's the guy that's like freaking does anything to not lose, that's a different guy.
Man, when you see somebody that hates to lose, I'll tell you, like when they win, they do training right when they're done. If they lose, they're doing something even crazier.
Yeah.
They're like they're we see this a lot with like wrestlers, and you've probably seen it in the throwing community. Is like if something doesn't go right, where do they go? Right to the weight room,
Yeah.
right back to work,
Mm-hmm.
back to
Back
work.
to it.
All right, my bro. So, I when I upload this, I'll be able to email you a link. You could
Okay.
add it to your YouTube.
Sweet.
So, guys, you could reach out to Nate. On is it Nate underscore Stout on Instagram?
Nate
I'll
underscore stout one.
one. I'm gonna link everything up on the YouTube and the podcast, but just for if people are listening, just search them, just Google that shit, okay, as they say. And Nate does online coaching. Nate has programs online for throwers. And then of course we hope parents listen to this. We know we dropped a couple of F-bombs, but it comes out of our passion for training. And I like that we were talking about the competitiveness, the fire. It's very exciting. And let's hear feedback on will you travel to New Jersey for an underground strength coach certification and do the work? Would you want to come out for a Project X and just fucking go through some hellish training, yet also some brotherhood time?
Yeah.
That would be a lot of
That would be
fun.
so
And
cool.
then we have Lift Strong, which is on I got it.
23rd.
Yep, that's
23rd.
on the 23rd. That's a Friday. It's a deadlift fundraiser, and high school is trap bar, and middle school is medicine ball shouldering, and that's all over my social media. So we hope to see people out. The furthest traveler is a guy that did the underground strength coach cert, Greg. Well, I don't know, can't believe I'm blanking on his name, but Greg drove from Canada, and when he did that lift strong, I believe he was 60 at the time. Great
And then
dude.
I hope when Paul Collodi shows up, he drops those hips a little bit.
I would tell stiff like deadlift guy. Yeah, Paul Collodi is an avid listener of the Strong Life. And I think what's cool about it is, all right, the deadlift comp is coming up, and you're like, oh man, I'm not ready. Start deadlifting.
show up
No,
and pull something.
that's right. No better time than now. All right, Nate, hang tight while I end this, and then we could do a proper goodbye. Thanks to everybody for listening.
Thanks so
Please leave a
much.
5-star review. And let's again hear back about Project X and Underground Strength Coach certification. Okay, Nate, stand by.